Just as today, there are different approaches to gardening. Thomas Small and John Abercrombie state in their 1767 Every Man His Own Gardener talks about how important a raised bed is, how to prepare the soil, and furthermore, how to plant each specific plant and when to plant it. In the 18th century, raised beds are seen in larger places such as Williamsburg, where they actually use pieces of glass to create a sort of greenhouse effect between their raised beds and the glass. Here in the backcountry, we don't specifically know if they had raised beds or not. There's no documentation even in Bethabara and the Moravian settlement near today what is Winston-Salem. Although Maw and Abercrombie state that a raised bed should be 2 to 3 feet, which could either be boards raised up and supported, or could be saplings propped up similar to the Wattle Fence. Today we're just going to mound up dirt into tall piles. This dirt has been well cultured. It has a variety of different manures and different soils in it to really create a good growing environment. Today we'll be planting a multitude of different things. We'll be planting radishes, carrots, beans, squash, cucumbers. We'll also be starting something called the Three Sisters Garden. This is a type of garden that you may be familiar with. It's a combination of corn, squash, and beans. For starters, we're just going to plant the corn to give it a head start until it grows about a foot. Next, we'll plant the squash and beans. The beans will climb up the corn, and of course the squash will shade the area so that weeds don't choke out the corn, the beans, or the squash itself. This is a Native American practice that many colonists learned throughout the 18th century and they're adopted. Let's talk about the fencing around this garden. This fencing is called a wattle fence, which is very common in the 18th century. It doesn't require any nails, rope, simply saplings and different green limbs that can be used as both uprights and as the woven perpendicular pieces. This fencing will be woven in between the upright saplings, and over time the green wood will actually shrink and sink down, and you'll add more and more on top. Fencing during this time was said to be extremely strong enough to keep out a wild boar, and tight enough to keep out a rabbit. Kitchen gardens in the 18th century were mixed with flowers, vegetables, and fruit trees, and were only beginning to be described as vegetable gardens in the Gardener's Dictionary in 1768. Before this, gardens were usually referred to as simply kitchen gardens or herb gardens. Herbs meaning non-woody plants such as fruit trees. It was previously fashionable to segregate the fruits and herbs. However, evidence from all over the 18th century world suggests it was practical and fashionable to have these two combined. For convenience and well-being, gardens in the 18th century were known to be one continuous plot filled with herbs as we know them today, vegetables, flowers, and fruit trees. These plots would be segregated by sweet herbs or medicinal herbs, so therein organized between the garden walls. In the 18th century, we know the span of land between the Brattons' original home and their neighbors, the Williamsons, was filled with peach trees. So there is quite a lot of evidence of fruit on the property. To help guide those who settled in the New World, several herbal guides were written. The earliest of these is John Gerard's Herbal, written in 1636. There are also guides such as Richard Bailey's New Improvements of Planting Gardens, written in 1718. There are other medicinal or herbal guides such as Every Man His Own Doctor in 1736, which combines herbs and medicine together.